Oh, hello, Internet. You seem to be here again. How are you doing? It's nice to see you. Um, wow, okay, so they always say start your videos with a big bang, which in this part of the world, whatever part of the world you happen to be in, may not always be the most ideal thing to do. But they always, people who talk about YouTube video algorithms and whatnot, are constantly telling you to make it exciting, make it peppy. From the first frame, from the thumbnail and the video title until the very last frame. From the first frame all the way to the last frame, they always tell you, like in shorts, make the very first frame powerful and impactful, and remember that every second counts. So if you're doing, 15-second, 30-second, 60-second shorts, every single second should be like, wow. And that's how you should run it all the way through to the end of the short, all the way to the last frame. Leave people wanting for more so that they will click on your next video or watch whatever you have lined up in your playlist or your queue that you show on your end card, etc. And in long form videos, they always tell you that quality matters more than trying to get tons of views for a short while. They want longer views, engagement. They want engagement on all kinds of videos. They always tell you to get engagement on all kinds of videos, and to make long form video more interesting, more in depth. Whether you're doing analysis or whether you're doing showcases or whether you're doing reactions or whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter. Talk show, game show, entertainment, drama, whatever, news, anything you're doing, right? Product reviews. Everyone else tells you to make the video content more wow. But they don't actually tell you always specifically how to do that. And one of the reasons for that is that the types of videos that talk about this content tend to want to tell you how to do things in general, as opposed to drilling down into actual niches and specific types of content where it may be relevant. So as I've done in videos past, I shall once again do in this video, right? And today's topic, which is going to be a little bit of an unpopular topic, is how to make videos about uncomfortable topics, right? So if you're doing news, analysis, if you're doing opinions, commentary, editorials, whatever it is, if you're voicing or expressing, your thoughts or the thoughts of your production crew, script, whatever, and it may not be popular or it may be uncomfortable, even if it is popular. It may give you a feeling of awkwardness. It may fill you with angst. It may give you the desire to retch. Whatever it is, they're uncomfortable topics. So let's dig in. Right, uncomfortable topics. Very few people out of the general public as a whole like to talk about topics that are usually seen as things not to talk about on the platforms that are hosting them. Why is that? It's because the platforms that are hosting them will usually not reward topics that are uncomfortable with a lot of views. What do I mean by that? I mean, there's usually not going to be a lot of people looking up uncomfortable topics unless they like that particular thing. A lot of people don't. They like to see confrontational headlines. They like to see, things that grab attention. That's why newspapers are able to sell or magazines and shows and news shows are able to sell, negative stories, right? But those negative stories tend to be popular, actually. They have a lot of people on both sides of the issue, usually. Uncomfortable topics are the topics where it pretty much everyone who sees the topic, pretty much, is going to be feeling a little, what do the kids say these days? Cringe, right? So if a topic makes you cringe, then that's an uncomfortable topic. If a topic makes you feel awkward or uncomfortable, or generally you don't like the idea of what the topic is covering, that is an uncomfortable topic. So examples of those kind of topics, right? And this video is for sure going to be, squashed by everything under the sun that runs the algorithms at YouTube, because nobody's going to look this up. Therefore, YouTube will have no reason to show it to anyone, right? But it's, the thing that caused the pandemic, right, in 2020, 2021, that we're all still living with in one way or another because of the, we may have moved past it by and large, but every year we keep seeing new strains of this thing, and there's still ongoing, people going back and forth about not wanting to get a vaccine or getting a vaccine or whatever they have. That topic is considered off limits and uncomfortable, and you have to be very delicate if you're concerned about getting high traffic, high views, high engagement for that topic. You need to be very careful. Other topics in the awkward and uncomfortable category fit the following descriptions, right? Certain topics about terrorism and war and conflict between humans. Now again, conflict and war can actually be very popular topics to talk about, usually because they affect whole populations. So you're going to have a lot of people on one side and the other, but a lot of those topics within those topics are very uncomfortable to people, and they'd rather not see it, right? So sub-niches of conflict and war and terrorism and all that will usually make people feel very uncomfortable. Talking about the ethics of a particular position, or the morality of a particular position, or whatever it might be, the language, the particular policies, the resulting effect to the societies involved, right? The personality issues of the people leading these conflicts on both sides, and sometimes there's more than two sides. In fact, very often there's more than two sides. So there's no shortage of ways that conflict can have awkward topics and uncomfortable topics to deal with, right? Another set of awkward topics is the age-old, time-tested topic of abortion, right? Again, very popular, quote-unquote, topic in terms of speaking. It's a popular topic that has large supporters on one side or the other, right? And so people are interested in that topic by and large as a gross overall topic. However, when you boil down, or when you drill down into the topic, you'll find that people don't like talking again about positions, policies, specific personalities, specific examples, very graphic examples, right? These are topics that people would rather not talk about. Medical practice, how the technical stuff is done, what it means, from an ethical or moral point of view to do it or not to do it, the causes, the results of not doing it and of doing it, to the people involved, namely to the mother, and also to the fetus or the unborn child, however you want to say that. Those are awkward generally like to avoid. What are some other awkward and uncomfortable topics? Well, and this one will for sure get this video banned in certain places, and that's okay. You're generally not allowed to watch videos or movies, or they're not allowed to air, I should say, or screen videos or movies on airplanes that feature airplane problems, disasters, crashes, etc. Right? So airplane crashes are considered awkward or uncomfortable, especially for people traveling on airlines at the time that they're watching the video. Which means that if you have movies, and there have been a number of them, featuring, a hijacking or a plane crash or anything like that, if the airline is going to show that movie, it will always be edited to remove any part that involves that particular content, because they don't want to show people things like an airline crash when they're flying in the middle of the air on an airliner, which, you could say makes sense, but it's something that they do in order to generally maintain, people's cool during a flight. And it may sound, again, logical to you that they do this, but nevertheless, it is a fact that it is done. And they do that because it's an awkward or uncomfortable topic. One solution, of course, is don't show movies involving airplanes that have problems. But they would rather sometimes show the movie and censor it than not. And this can be part of the reason they do that is because that the company doing the marketing and distribution for that movie may have decided, that they have a certain budget and they're going to pay for the distribution on an airliner, even if it has to be heavily censored. Of course, some movies are all about that, so they can't be shown on airliners unless you're just going to basically show like pretty much just no movie at all, right? So those are just a few examples of very specific uncomfortable and awkward topics, right? And there's plenty more, right? For example, children starving, right? People don't like to watch movies about children starving, children suffering, children in pain, children not receiving the required medical treatments that they need, right? People not having the housing that they need, especially if they're kids, people not having sufficient clothing, or being terribly, terribly miseducated or not educated at all. And why is that? It's because most of us have a heart and we don't want to see children suffer, which is a perfectly logical thing. And that's not a topic where you're going to have a lot of people supporting the notion of children suffering, hopefully. Of course, there's always going to be outliers and exceptions to all these topics, where you're going to have a bunch of lunatics who, like to see the crazy stuff, and who are enjoying it, right? The point is, I'm talking about topics that make most people, the vast majority of people on the bell curve, awkward or uncomfortable, right? And why is that important? Well, because if you're making content like that, because sometimes those are pressing issues that you might feel you have to respond to, it may be very challenging to do it in a way that gets good results. And so those are just some. It could also be issues related to deforestation, right? Or human health, or the fashion industry, where materials are sourced from, or the agricultural industry, where chocolate or coffee are sourced from, right? Or how farmers are, not well recompensed for their labors. In some cases, live in abject poverty in order to provide you with goods that are, with produce that is almost freely available, very available, and relatively cheap, right? It could be the manufacturing industry, right? Talking about how certain factories, use child labor or do, terrible things to their workers in order to prevent them from earning a living wage and actually attaining financial freedom of any kind whatsoever, or even attaining a decent middle-class lifestyle, right? Which is supposed to be one of the big promises of the manufacturing industry, right? So labor is a big one. How do you how do you make content for these kind of topics? Well, these particular kind of topics, right, which I've just outlined to you now in pretty good detail in terms of what they are and what they consist of, are because they're so hands-off in terms of the platforms that are willing to, first of all, have the content on their platforms, and B, you're not likely to see many people searching for them. It makes it quite challenging as a video producer, content producer, to get a lot of eyeballs and a lot of traction to those kinds of contents. The solution, of course, is to make that content compelling, not by making the content more watered down, right? But by focusing very much on the reality of the subject and making it on purpose a highlighted feature of the content, the awkwardness and the uncomfortableness of the content highlighted as a feature of it, right? So the thumbnail, the title should be demonstrating just how awkward and uncomfortable that content is, because that will do two things. One, it'll drive away anyone who's too uncomfortable watching it, so it gets rid of like 99% of the audience right away, if not more. Two, it will pull in the small percentage of people that are curious about this topic, and even if it's uncomfortable or awkward, they would like to learn more, right? And what you need to do, especially if your topic is not brand new and has some traction already by other people, or at least has some videos made by other people over the past days, weeks, months, or years, or whatever, you should go and search for that topic or similar topics in the same niche, and you should find, just, look at the last month or the last week or whatever, because generally they're uncomfortable or awkward topics, so they're not going to have too much traction usually, right? You're not going to find a Mr. Beast video in these kind of topics usually, right? I don't think so. You're not going to find Mark Rober's videos in this kind of content, right? But you will find a plethora of videos covering uncomfortable and awkward topics, and you can see which ones have performed the best. And you can do the very same thing, however differently, for your thumbnail and your title. And if you're doing a short, from the very first frame all the way to the last frame, by making every second compelling, or if you're making long form video, again, the thumbnail, the title, the first frame, the progression of the video, should have an arc of some kind, usually, right? A beginning, a middle, and an end, right? Where you break the story up into at least 3 parts, or the video up into at least 3 parts, in terms of how you go about showcasing the content, right? So, but what can you do differently? Well, you can avoid using the exact words and say things about the topic that people would rather not say at all, which can be even more uncomfortable and more awkward. In other words, you can do what's called saying the quiet part out loud, right? So you might address a topic of whatever, children hunger, right? Hunger, the hunger of children, poor children who don't have enough food to eat. And you might address it as hungry children, but hungry children can be mischaracterized or mislabeled because it can also be used in cute family videos. Hey, check out these hungry children as they're about to devour, their favorite, meal made by mommy or whatever, right? But if you make the topic starving kids about to die, right? That's going to be much more gripping than just saying, topic of hungry children. So don't use hungry, use starving, famished, severely malnutrition, severely underfed, deadly or lethal malnutrition, topics like that, and emphasize that in the thumbnail and in the title so that it's clear that this is a very, very difficult topic to discuss. And that's how you cover that type of topic. All right, I have to get going. I'll talk with you guys later. Anyway, that's the first part of this video about awkward and uncomfortable topics and saying the quiet part out loud in order to, and I don't mean saying the quiet part out loud in terms of revealing your actual strategy when you don't mean to, right? I mean revealing the most horrific aspect, which, you know, can be the same thing, but it is usually not. But it can be, but it's revealing the kind of the worst possible version of what the awkward or uncomfortable topic could be or is about. And that's how you get attention from people who, for whatever reason, want to know more about that, usually because they want to educate themselves, or they are personally, you know, attached to a topic and they want to, you know, figure out how they can help somebody, whatever it might be. So anyway, I'll talk with you guys later. Happy marketing.